$2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Somebody writes, oh. Charlie writes, Jewish donors play into all of the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this.
Like, she's planting enough conspiracy seeds that there are people on the right with huge platforms that are legitimately being like, I question the narrative of the FBI. For some time now has been spreading an idea, or at least suggesting one, that perhaps we don't know the full story of who killed Charlie Kirk. And of course we don't at this time, because the person who has been arrested for the murder of Charlie Kirk is currently awaiting trial. And in the United States, I'm to presume that you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. So it is true at this time, not all the details are known, but she's been putting it out there that in fact, Charlie Kirk had for some time actually been critical of Israel. He didn't want to support Israel anymore, and he was starting to suggest that he was going to distance himself from Israel, which is a weird thing to hear, because ultimately Charlie Kirk is probably, and was, I would say, one of the most outspoken right-wing Zionists who was working in the political space. Without a question. I have seen an endless amount of videos of Charlie Kirk either debating college students about the the amazing and incredible alliance between Israel and the United States, about the importance of Israel in the Middle East, mocking people who would bring up the genocide of Palestinians, saying that Palestine is not a real country, so how can they be genocided, things of that nature. Very, very close to his death, he actually did a special on his show, which we watched, in which he was trying to downplay the severity of children starving in Gaza, saying that there is no famine, that the whole thing is made up. In fact, that, bringing up the same conspiracies that other people had done before in the past, putting out there that maybe all those images that you're seeing of those starving children, they had other conditions. So checkmate. Aha, no forced starvation if someone has a different condition, because apparently if you happen to have a condition, you don't need food to live, is kind of the argument there. So I would say a pretty horrifying monster in terms of his advocacy and promotion of both Zionism and, the genocide and extermination of Palestinians. In terms of his outward life's work, I'm just talking about the things that he said and did and put into his shows and into his debates, his own content, all right? I'm not trying to editorialize. Again, if you were to look at the sum total of Charlie Kirk's work, there's unbelievably a very clear through line in that he was a very strong supporter of Israel. One of the reasons why he battled with Nick Fuentes, why Nick Fuentes and the Groypers hated him, was they hated his position on Israel. And they would often criticize him, saying that he was part of the Jewish conspiracy, the Jewish cabal, as they called it, the globalists, that he was a shill for the Jews. These are all things that Nick Fuentes would say about Charlie Kirk, and why he wasn't a true America First patriot like they were. You see, within the right, there are different subsets, and Nick Fuentes and the Groypers are basically like the Nazi corner of the right, and they felt that he wasn't Nazi enough, and so that he needed to go further right, so they would battle him, they would troll him, they would troll Turning Point USA events, all that kind of stuff, which is why after the shooting of Charlie Kirk, a lot of people suspected, and myself included, that the shooter could have been a Groyper, because that would actually line up with a lot of the potential, these are people who usually have access or are in families that have access to guns. They hated Charlie Kirk. Nick Fuentes spoke frequently about targeting Charlie Kirk, not like go murder him, but more as in like go troll the guy because he's not a true patriot, that kind of stuff. And so that brings us now to Candace Owens, who has released this text exchange of Charlie Kirk, which has been verified by Turning Point USA and the Charlie Kirk current show as being real. So that was like, just because Candace Owens says something, just so we're clear, most of the time I'm not going to take it as true, because her track record is like shit. There's just no two ways about this. When it comes to Candace Owens and her conspiracy theories, she's quite horrible at it. I would say famously so, almost to a point that it's absolutely ludicrous that some people take her seriously on anything. She has spent so much time trying to spread this whole conspiracy that Brigitte Macron, the wife of Emmanuel Macron, happens to be a man and has a penis, and she actually takes the story so seriously that she's done entire documentaries on it, Becoming Brigitte and all this kind of stuff about how she fooled the world And her evidence insofar as Brigitte Macron is a man and has a penis has been that there's not a lot of photos of her as a child. That's pretty much the sum total of her evidence. Now, Brigitte Macron eventually sued Candace Owens. Candace Owens tried to get the lawsuit thrown out. She couldn't, and so that is actually going through. And I have a feeling, if I'm being completely honest, they're probably going to settle out of court, Candace Owens will, for an undisclosed sum so that she probably doesn't have to maybe admit wrongdoing or something, but I think she'll still have to apologize. I think that's probably going to be part of the terms, because this one's really bad for Candace. If you didn't know this, Brigitte Macron has given birth to 3 children. And as someone who understands how all of this works, I just want to be very clear about this. Men can give birth. This is true. But Candace Owens doesn't believe that. That's not what Candace Owens believes. Candace Owens believes that that is gender ideology, trans indoctrination. None of it's true. All of, like, she's an incredibly transphobic bigot, and so she does not believe that trans men are real. She does not believe that there is such a thing as men giving birth. So the entire idea for her is just utterly it's a non-starter. So she's not implying that Brigitte Macron is a trans man. All right, she's implying that Brigitte Macron is a trans woman specifically, and as such would not be able to, again, biologically give birth to children. Unfortunately for her, the evidence presented by Brigitte Macron so far in that case is the fact that she has given birth to 3 children, and as such is defining herself and is medically able to prove that she is a cis woman, which she is. Yeah. There's so many things you could have gone after Brigitte Macron for. You could have gone after her for being a pedophile, because she's also that. I would say pretty demonstratively. I'm saying this out loud without worries of Brigitte Macron potentially suing me one day, because she did groom her eventual husband when he was very fucking young for a long time, Emmanuel Macron. So there's a lot there that you could go down that angle and attack her for. But no, if you're such a fucking, transphobe and you've just got all this transphobia and conspiracies, you run with the story that is so silly, but clearly you got an email or two, you looked at a picture or two, and one of her proofs is that one of the photos of one of her relatives actually looks a little bit like her as a younger photo in the few younger photos that they have. And so because of that, this person is actually the male version of Brigitte Macron. The evidence is just, again, it's irrefutable, except for the fact that, again, Brigitte Macron is now going to be, and has apparently presented evidence in their trial that she in fact has pregnancy photos and also has medical records of her giving birth to 3 children. So good luck with that, Candace. You're gonna do great. Will not be very expensive and embarrassing for you eventually. In the meantime, she put this out, and this apparently is true. So we have leaked messages from Charlie Kirk. Content warning: there's quite a bit of anti-Semitism in here, but I'm going to show them to all of you. Charlie Kirk says, just lost another huge Jewish donor. $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Ugh. Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. Please, don't invite Candace. This might feel good short term, but it's not good long term, in my opinion. Like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free thing that God bestows on us all makes life frustrating at times. As dust settles a bit, maybe. So here it is. Now, I just want to put this out there, because there's no evidence here that Israel orchestrated an assassination of Charlie Kirk, even in these new leaked text messages. And let me explain. Actually, you know what I should do before then is maybe just a warning. If you happen to be a right-winger who's watching me right now, or you just hate watching me, if you happen to be someone who is MAGA, or even if you're further right than that, there's not much room to wiggle there, but maybe, if you're in the Groyper category, whoever you are, if you happen to be a right-winger right now, everything I'm about to say after right now is false, wrong, and silly, and you shouldn't listen to any of it. It's just me trying to placate to the lefties because, I got to do what I got to do to make that bag. So I'm just going to say a bunch of soy stuff. I'm going to soy out. It's going to be really soy. I'm going to cuck myself multiple times. I'm going to get triggered by my own cucking. It'll be all the things that you expect, and then I'll melt like a snowflake. So what I'm about to do right now, all of it, ignore it, okay? What you should be doing more than anything is listening to Candace Owens. She is honestly the prophet, the one true prophet. Don't take this by my word as a leftist. I'm a clown. You shouldn't trust me. But I cannot battle with her intellect and her superior, 9,000 IQ, whatever she's got going down there. Everything that she's saying, you should run with it and get out there and just spread as many different conspiracies as possible. Have fun with this, okay? Get out there. Maybe watch some Alex Jones, pepper in some InfoWars, whatever you got to do. But keep on promoting this and keep on going down that road, because there's absolutely nothing that can disprove the things that she says out loud, for sure. All right, and maybe just tune me out now. Don't listen to anything I say from this point on. So move on from there. This is ridiculous. I'll explain why. First off, for this motive and for this entire Israel is responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk thing to work, here's a couple little things you have to keep in mind. Israel, right, that is responsible for horrors and atrocities. Absolute, without question, there are things that we should be criticizing Israel on a regular basis. Notably, their genocide of Palestinians. That's what we should be talking about if we talk about the horrifying things that Israel does. And yes, without question, there is a deep intelligence apparatus that works within Israel, the Mossad, and they have been known to do plots. They have been known to intimidate people, to blackmail people, to pressure people. All of that is 100% factually true. Without question, I'm not trying to discount or downplay any of these elements of it. That stuff is real. But to assert that one of the most outspoken publicly, advocates for the Zionist cause, that was Charlie Kirk, because he suddenly had doubts behind the scenes, was then instantly assassinated, when there are so many people, including Candace fucking Owens, who were also in that camp. She used to work for the Daily Wire, okay? The Daily Wire, run by, Jeremy Boring and Ben Shapiro, promote pro-Zionist opinions all the time. And then there eventually became an inflection point where she stopped doing that and started promoting anti-Zionist opinions, because she is one of those people that conflates the two, anti-Semitism with criticism of Israel. And it turns out she's very anti-Semitic. I'm talking about Protocols of the Elders of Zion style. She spreads Jewish conspiracy theories, openly. And because of that, she went down that road, much like Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is another example of this. People who happen to be both people who criticize and hate Israel and hate Jewish people. These are people who are both anti-Semitic and critics of Israel. They exist. They are real. Okay? Now, in the case of Charlie Kirk and this, why in the world would Israel go through all the trouble of doing that if it was just behind the scenes we have suspicions that he might not be completely on board with the cause or something like that, rather than taking out all these other people? Why have they not taken out Nick Fuentes? Why have they not taken out Tucker Carlson? There's a much bigger example. Tucker Carlson, yes, used to be someone who was very, very pro the United States alliance with Israel, that they are the only democracy in the Middle East. He said all this out loud to fucking Ted Cruz in that really disastrous interview he did with Ted Cruz, for Ted Cruz, by the way, where he explained everything. He's like, I changed my opinion on this. I used to be the U.S.-Israeli alliance. I was for that. I'm against that now. And Ted Cruz was like, well, that's because you hate the Jews. He's like, I'm not talking about the Jews. I'm talking about the relationship between a sovereign nation state, Israel, and the relationship with the United States. Tucker Carlson was going that far. Why didn't they take out Tucker Carlson? Why didn't that happen? Or Nick Fuentes, of all people, someone who just hates Jewish people and hates Israel. There's so many people, remember when they took out Nick Fuentes? Oh, that's true, actually. I should mention that. Nick Fuentes did broadcast gay pornography to his audience and then said it was Israel that did it. So there's so many things we can blame Israel for and should blame Israel for, notably the genocide of Palestinians, their abysmal human rights record, and their continued oppression of the Palestinian people. That's what you should call them out for. In terms of inventing conspiracy theories where we assume that Israel is responsible for all the evils in the world, this is one of those things that's so ridiculous. You know what this text message exchange proves? It proves that there is a difference between criticism of Israel and people who are anti-Semitic or spread anti-Semitic conspiracies. It turns out privately, Charlie Kirk, and this may shock some people, was a bit of a fucking racist and said racist things and anti-Semitic things. And publicly was an outspoken advocate for Zionism. That's what she has proven here. That's what you are seeing before your eyes. This is the big revelation that Candace Owens has brought to the world. I know. I know. It's just shocking. I know. Leave it to someone to have to explain it to everybody, but there it is.
And we now have to suffer these military bot farms calling for war with Iran. But last night, the platform was exceptional. It was amazing. The tears that were being shed all over the place. I mean, I really picked out the best responses to me dropping the text messages. It was hilarious. Anyway, Turning Point USA has responded to the release of the messages, so we are going to watch that. Spoiler alert, they were real, of course. And on top of that, a Turning Point USA donor has published a...
I think that's the most shocking element of this entire story. I think that without question, of everything, of every twist and turn so far, the fact that she actually posted a real thing is pretty nuts. That I was like, oh wow, okay, I am surprised.
Public letter regarding me, and I was truly touched by it, and I think you will be too. So I want to share that. Welcome back to Candace.
Your wife has many times been like, I have a bad feeling about this guy, Tucker. Don't have him on your show. And her intuition is such that even though there's no necessarily hard evidence, you know, it's your wife's take on stuff. You don't ignore it. But
I have ignored it. And it's...
You're like, I've actually never listened to that.
No, I mean, I've been married 34 years as of Saturday.
Really nothing related to Charlie's death. I find it scary how Candace is building a literal cult. Soon, they'll be drinking Kool-Aid in sync with, I don't even know if that says 31 Atlas, to be sent to heaven. I think that might be a cult.
By the way, I got to be honest, like, you know, in this case, it's one of those let them make each other batshit moments. Yes. Keep going. Just put it all out there. Just throw stuff into the mix that makes absolutely no sense and has no basis in reality, and get more right-wingers suddenly questioning their relationship with each other and the government and everything. Sure, just throw it all out there. What could go wrong, possibly, if a large subset of the entire right suddenly believes something that is diametrically opposed to the other half of the entire right? Because really, you know, the separation, say, amongst liberals, because I don't think there's as much of a necessity for separation with leftists. With liberals, there has been a clear divide, and this divide has shown me which are the good libs and the bad libs, and that has really been going down a through line on colonization. It really comes back to that, you know, the entire purpose of what we call these countries, Canada, you know, or America, these nation states that are built upon the oppression and colonization of indigenous people. And in the modern era, when you speak about Israel and Palestine, you have people who post October 7th, a lot of liberals have come to terms with the fact that I have been believing a lie, and that lie is connected to so many other lies, and that lie can be, you know, expanded upon to this idea that the benevolence and beauty of what I consider to be America is done under the oppression of other groups and people and countries and nations, and at this moment in time, I'm starting to realize that maybe this idea of this benevolent nation state that has appeared in the Middle East, that is the only democracy in the Middle East, is maybe not all the great things that I was told. And I'm seeing that with my own eyes. And it's hard to look away when I see the utter devastation, destruction, and the forced starvation of children, which is a breaking point for a lot of people. Some people, they have no end. There's no end to their depravity. They will see this and they'll double down and be like, we need to keep going. We need to destroy them all. We need to crush Hamas. We need to crush the Palestinians. We need to get rid of this. We need to start, the colonization will continue. That's the road that a lot of people have been going in two directions. You'll notice that, right? A lot of liberals who at one point you may have seen, they wouldn't be flirting with ideas like leftism, maybe voting for someone who's a social democrat, even, you know, ideas like that are now starting to go in that camp where it's just like a lot of this is, I'm sorry, I can't, it's too grotesque. I have children of my own. I can't imagine what it's like to just do this level of horror and atrocity and torture to kids. Other people are just like, you know what? Fuck it. Fascism. If that's the choice that we're seeing, these two options that are coming before my eyes, one side is saying socialism, the other is barbarism. I choose barbarism, all right? And fucking I want to oppress every one of these people that I think are subhuman. I've got it so indoctrinated into my brain. I believe Muslims are subhuman. I believe people who worship Allah are subhuman. I believe that they are jihadists. I believe that they are radicals. And I believe that we need to control them or they will become oppressors globally. So this is what we're supposed to do. The benevolence of the liberals, the benevolence of the neoliberal world order, and the benevolence of Zionism and all this kind of stuff. That's been the direction that a handful of them have gone in, right? In terms of the right-wing split, it's quite different, all right? You seem to have two camps, and those two camps right now are the people who are obviously, no, we also are Republican Christian nationalists and conservatives, and the Christian nationalist movement is the Zionist movement. The majority of Zionists in the United States are Christian evangelicals. The overwhelming majority. So that's the majority of that camp. They're still very pro-Israel. You're getting that. That's why it's very important right now for the other side is going to distinguish itself from that other side. They need to establish that, no, we are not for the oppression and colonization of the Palestinian people. And you are seeing that. You are, without a doubt, it has changed more in this last couple of years than I've ever seen in my lifetime. Unfortunately, it is also coming at this enormous mass human cost and just the death of journalism, medical workers, children, aid workers, churches, mosques, orphanages, you name it, morality, right? We are witnessing before our very eyes this idea that we human beings are not at one point in history uniquely evil. We can always be uniquely evil, and more people than ever are having to reckon with that. It's not just the Nazis who did evil in history. It's lots of other people and lots of other groups, and continue to do so throughout history. That's the reality of the world we live in, and it's fucked up. But now we have this again. The right wing, one half of it obviously evangelical Christians, MAGA or pro-Trump or conservative, whatever it is, but also Zionists and for that project. On the other side, just the weirdest assortment of people who are actually anti-Semitic, people who actually hate Jewish people, people who spread Jewish conspiracies, and a lot of other conspiracy theorists, all muddling the waters together. Anti-vaxxers, InfoWars types, Ian Carroll / fucking Candace Owens types, Glenn Greenwald standing off to the side being like, well, I'm not one of them. I am willing to promote and support and honestly hang out with all of them. Yes, but I'm definitely not one of them. But I'm going to be hanging out with all of them kind of shit. And here we have it. You know, here we have this little divide between people being like, I don't know what the fuck Candace Owens is putting out there, but it scares me. Because I don't give a fuck about Candace Owens and her postpartum psychotic rants. Even if those texts are real, it still doesn't mean that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Candace Owens, oh my God, Candace, you have pulled off an incredible magic trick here, one that I didn't think anyone would ever be able to do. This is astonishing. You have made Laura Loomer correct for the first time in history, maybe. You've given her a single win. I didn't know that was possible. That requires powers beyond my comprehension to have done.
About me, when somebody called her out, Morgan Ariel said, Laura Loomer hasn't made a single post about Candace Owens reporting on Charlie Kirk's group messages. We all know she's the first to run her mouth. And she wrote, because I don't give an F about Candace Owens. Germany, it's a bombardment strategy. So that's why we use it when you're going to. What a coincidence. He had his great...
Charlie Kirk said he had no choice to leave the pro-Israel cause because the Jewish donors stopped giving him millions of dollars. What a coincidence. He has a great epiphany about Israel after they stopped paying him to shill. Well, Candace, weird that, an actual overt neo-Nazi is the people who are in your camp agreeing with you. That's got to feel strange, unless you don't think of him as that. Yeah, that could have something to do with it. I will give Candace every single shekel Israel has paid me for my posts if she can prove those text messages are real. They confirmed that the messages were real. Oh, the infighting.
I felt like it didn't necessarily comport with things that were already public. I wanted to not betray my friend's trust in that way.
Oh, sorry.
But I did share it with some people in government because it happened really quick. It was, it took 33 hours for authorities to get their suspect. And in those first moments, we wanted no stone unturned. We wanted to leave nothing unturned. So I shared it with a few people. Don't know where it went from there, apparently. But here we are. So one of the reasons, Blake, that I'm glad to have this now public, it was not mine to share publicly, but one of the criticisms we've received is that we don't care. We're not investigating every lead. We're not looking under every stone. And that somehow we're just sweeping things under the rug. And when I say that we want justice for Charlie more than anybody else, I really mean it, and no stone unturned. I mean, I don't know if you want to chime in on that part alone, but I have more to say.
Yeah, so it has been so frustrating to have people blow up about this.
Yeah.
And I've certainly stated publicly, the reason I haven't weighed in on things is I am an eyewitness to events, and they've said, don't comment on things because anything you say can mess that up. I don't want to mess up any trial for the person who did this.
That's 1,000% right. And I will say I wasn't an eyewitness. I was not there. I flew to Utah immediately to be with the family and the team, but I was not an eyewitness. So there's that. But I am aware that in my role as spokesman for Turning Point USA, which is another hat I wear, that things I say, I'm cognizant of the fact that things I say could negatively impact an ongoing investigation. All right. But I will weigh in specifically on this issue of Israel because I know there's a lot of fascination. And I just want to say that, you know, we have to let free speech be our North Star here. Okay. Charlie was adamantly free speech. And I am not personally going to impugn anybody's character who is asking questions and looking for answers. All right. And I will say that that text chain is consistent with public frustrations that he voiced many times. And I know, Blake, you were in the trenches on a lot of this stuff because we were workshopping.
Yeah, we know that we confirmed it. Okay, so that's, I think, the extent of it. Where I think this is all leading, if I'm being totally honest, and this is where it's going to get very, very intense, is a potential showdown between Candace Owens and Erica Kirk. Because at a certain point, like, this is already getting enough people speaking about it, people who weren't speaking about the conspiracy before. Tim Pool is sounding off on it. It's only a matter of time before other people, and again, a lot of the right do have a lot of, you know, baked in anti-Semitism in their brains where they're going to want to run with something of this nature. There's going to be a certain point where it's going to be like, you know, can Candace Owens effectively start manipulating enough of the entire right to believing that Israel was responsible for the assassination of Charlie Kirk versus the fact that that narrative will be directly, you know, damaging to the potential that they have caught Charlie Kirk's actual killer and the narrative that the other side of the right is trying to paint. Charlie Kirk's killer was a leftist, was either trans or in love with a trans person, was in a trans relationship, that's for sure. If the bullets didn't give you enough of the information, the bullets themselves could have been trans, all that kind of stuff. That's what the other half of the right are trying to paint his narrative. Matt Walsh is in that camp. He wants to go after trans people. Donald Trump is in that camp. He wants to go after trans people. So there's a lot of big right-wing figures, including, you know, obviously the Daily Wire crew is completely against this idea, versus Candace Owens, who is now trying to promote this really likely is starting to look like it could have been done, if not by Israel. I've never said that it was specifically done by an Israeli agent or Mossad or even Benjamin Netanyahu himself, but it is very curious. Why can't we ask questions about this? Why can't we raise the fact that it does seem that Charlie Kirk, in fact, spoke out about his potential unalignment with Israel into the future? That's yeah, I know. You're so right. Candace Owens has become everything Alex Jones wishes he could be, because Alex Jones just, again, is a shotgun of misinformation every day. It's just, and then he's going to fire it at the wall. And of the 1,000 things he said in like a 4-hour span, one of them might turn out to be true. And then he'll afterwards be like, Alex Jones was right. I told you. I predicted this, you know. And then it's like, well, of all the things you said yesterday, you said that there was some weird hybrid human-alien chimera being produced by Satanists on Mars in order to, you know, increase the size of sperm inside goats. Like, that was the thing you said. That's not true. Well, that could turn out to be true. But in the meantime, the other thing I said was definitely true. You saw it. I predicted this. I predicted everything. Candace Owens is capable of manipulating a large percentage of the entire right to believing in batshittery. Like, again, it's one thing to get like one or two people who are really susceptible to conspiracy theories, you know, like Jimmy Dore, Ian Carroll, those types to suddenly be like, okay, I'm on board. But when you get mainstream pundits who are starting to actually question this and are starting to be like, I'm not saying she's right, but I am saying that the whole story doesn't add up. That's wild. That this one woman now has the influence and ability to actually transform a lot of the right-wing discourse all on her own. You know, that being like, without a question, the most powerful spinoff from the Daily Wire, in so that she has actually surpassed the Daily Wire. She has more reach and more sway than they could have ever imagined.
It's not good long term. This is 48 hours before Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was very clear and he was very explicit, and he did not back down, not in that Hamptons meeting, which they're all lying about, nor in this text thread.
Now with this, it seems like...
Yeah, like people like as huge as Tim Pool are posting stuff like this. What the fuck is going on? This is crazy. Candace says Charlie expressed fear that he was going to get killed just before being murdered. Why are the pro-Israel people so bad at the PR game? 24 hours before the assassination, Charlie told multiple people, I think they're going to kill me. Why would he go out without proper security then? Like, she's planting enough conspiracy seeds that there are people on the right with huge platforms that are legitimately being like, I question the narrative of the FBI.
Charlie's death and promoting their own conspiracies about what happened.
What we do know definitively is that the feds are lying to us. That is obvious. It is abundant. If you have...
This is the part of it that I'm so curious about. Could this actually, unintentionally, to be clear, because she is no ally to anyone. This is one of the biggest hate mongers with the biggest platform. But again, because of how batshit this all is, it could have an unintentional consequence in that that part could be true. It very well seems like there's at least enough evidence that Kash Patel has fucked this entire thing up, right? And in their attempts, the Trump administration's attempts to really, really try and focus on trans people, the dangers of trans people, not to mention justify his use of this NSPM 7 directive, which basically dictates any enemy of Donald Trump's agenda is technically a terrorist, right? Like that's the stuff that they're pushing on the back of utilizing Charlie Kirk and his assassination. All of that is questionable, and all of that should be scrutinized, and all of that should be talked about. She's not coming at it from that angle. She's coming at it from the angle of they're lying to you, okay? Because Israel did it. And then you're like, oh, wow. Okay, well, maybe I should just sit back and, you know, is this one of those situations where it's two very, very bad groups of people? I mean, I don't like, that's why I'm like, I don't want to be the one to actually apply logic on the behalf of the conservatives here and help them out, because again, there's no evidence of this whatsoever. There's so many bad things that you can put on Israel. Again, they're genocide of Palestinians, of which there is an unbelievable amount of evidence. They are doing that before the eyes of the world. You can criticize them on that. But in terms of they orchestrated an assassination of a prominent right-wing figure in the United States who was one of the biggest outspoken Zionists publicly because privately he wasn't enjoying how things were going in terms of the amount he was getting paid, I don't know what to do here outside of say, let them fight. Let them all fight. Yeah, I've never needed this button more.
Let them fight.
If you're able to think thoughts, you recognize that something is very wrong with the story that has been presented to the public. And I think that what the public doesn't understand, and I count myself among the public, is why it seems as though Turning Point USA executives, and I'll say seems, are not even remotely interested in challenging that official narrative. Who are they protecting exactly? You'll see oftentimes they and other influencers will invoke Erica as the reason that it's not appropriate to ask questions. It's just not appropriate. While
see what I'm saying? That is going to be a showdown. I don't think Turning Point USA or the Trump administration want any of this. I don't. They don't want this getting nearly as popular as it's getting right now, because again, that showdown eventually might have to happen, right? And that's going to be a really difficult one. Is Candace Owens going to battle the grieving widow of this now sanctified deity? And Candace Owens will come at it from the perspective like, I'm the only one who truly cares about the truth. I'm the one who wants to catch the real killer in this case. And all of you are unwilling to look at the evidence that I have, which is ample. So, wow.
Erica is still mourning for you guys to ask any questions. And I'm just going to come back at you with some common sense. What sort of widow wouldn't want people to investigate the assassination of their husband?
You also had Candace claiming that Charlie...
That's quite a strong statement, you know? That's the one that like any leftist who just said the sentence she said out loud would be fired. If you were a journalist or you were an academic, especially an academic of color, if you came forward and you said, it just seems odd to me the way that Erica Kirk, the so-called widow in the situation, she's not actually going after the real killer. If you said that out loud, like, oh my God, you're toast. People were getting fired from their jobs for being like, I think Charlie Kirk was divisive. That was enough. Like that was more than enough.
No consistency. It's about whatever is going to get eyeballs on me. We then also added that this is true for tons of different people and that many are vultures trying to use his death to serve themselves. You know, with all that said, as we're watching this play out, I got to ask you, what are your thoughts, opinions, and reactions to
I gave them I mean, let them fight. I've never expected something like this would come along. This is why I think it was in Leftist Mafia we were having a discussion a while ago and people were criticizing me for saying that Candace Owens is smart, which is a weird thing to say in the context of the fact that she says the most absurd batshit stuff all the time. But I don't mean it in that what she is saying is true or valid. Like I know that she pushes an endless amount of ridiculous conspiracy theories, racist conspiracy theories, homophobic conspiracy theories, transphobic conspiracy theories. All of it is disprovable and nonsense. But in terms of being a media personality and in running an empire now that is surpassing the one that originally hired her, like she is blown Daily Wire out of the water. They're not relevant. Like if you look at their numbers, like every single one of those people, they're yesterday's news. No one really, oh, guess what, Matt Walsh said something really offensive. Who gives a fuck? Media Matters doesn't even post him anymore. Like but Candace Owens is now like the voice of the people on the far right for a lot of them anyways, and she has found a way to consistently use stories, whether it's like, you know, the Justin Baldoni one, whether it's her a whole like Brigitte Macron has a penis, whatever she is doing, or aligning with Harvey Weinstein, she does these things that make her viral sensations. I know people who are normies who know of Candace Owens because she pops up in their feeds because of how viral her clips are always going. And these aren't people who are on the right. These are not people who are like into you know, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, all that kind of stuff, but they'll just have like, I was looking up Justin Baldoni stories and then all of a sudden all these Candace Owens clips start popping up on my feed. Yeah, because she knew how to monetize that shit like crazy, like better than anyone else, better than anyone on the left, the right, the libs, you name their political ideology. Candace Owens was the queen of utilizing that situation and milking it for all it's worth. And right now when it comes to this situation, I can't say what she believes. Most likely it's money, right? Or fame or more likes and clicks and views. And in that, she is really good at it. Very media savvy, or her team is, whoever it is, but that seems to be something at which she is dominating other right-wing pundits in this field, and no one is coming close, like on a regular basis. So much so now that, again, the things she's saying out loud are things that would have you, like, have the entire right turn against you. Can you imagine, like in another context, another creator comes forward and says, I think it's pretty fucked up that Erica Kirk isn't talking about who the real killer truly is. And I have a lot of evidence that points towards this. And why is Turning Point USA and the people who run the Charlie Kirk show, why are they taking all this money in and making all this money off his death and not talking about the real clear ties that his true assassination might have? That kind of stuff, like, it's just that no one would do that. It would be like, what, are you serious? That you're going to go after the grieving widow and the way that she's acting and the organization in the midst of, like, right now, anyone who says anything other than Charlie Kirk was a saint is going to get destroyed? My word. This is wild to see, you know.
First off, thank you so much to our patrons for making this show possible. We could not fund it without you. And if you want to join, please check out patreon.com/theserfs to unlock bonus episodes, uncensored content, and all the good stuff. Thanks to Anna Loves Riley, Addercap, Bobby Lasers, Cheryl Alvarez, Comrade Junkie, Doug Caddy, Everything Important, Hegbard Salim, Multimondi, Omni, Political Papi, Preston Kroll, Quiet One 85, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Cernicus, Stellar Gwyn, Sebastian Demmel, Tigwick, and Words Greenwood.